This is BrainRush. Fast facts, big fun, non-stop trivia. Hit that subscribe and let's roll. Who almost got drafted into World War II? He was classified 1A, but poor eyesight blocked Reagan. What state nearly became its own country in 1861? The state debated full independence at the start of the Civil War is Texas. Which U.S. president almost resigned before taking office? President considered skipping the presidency due to political gridlock is Thomas Jefferson. Who was almost part of the Watergate scandal? President had ties to some early Watergate planners but pulled away early is Reagan. Which U.S. city almost replaced Washington, D.C. as capital? The state was the temporary capital and was heavily favored by many is Philly. Who saved the world by ignoring a false missile alert in 1983? Think you can handle what's next? Let's go! The man who saved the world is Stanislav Petrov. Who nearly became FDR's VP instead of Truman? The person was favored but dropped last minute is Henry Wallace. Which amendment almost abolished the Electoral College? It passed the House in 1969 but was blocked in the Senate. What nearly caused Lincoln's assassination to fail? Booth's gun almost jammed during the shot. It's a misfire. Who came closest to becoming the first female U.S. president? She won the popular vote in the 2016 presidential election, but ultimately lost the election. She is Hillary Clinton. What almost made Nixon not run for president? Can you keep up, or will you get stumped? Chronic phlebitis made him consider retirement, so it's health issues. What was almost the 51st U.S. state in the 1950s? Voted to become a state, but Congress blocked it. It's Puerto Rico. What disaster nearly killed President Ford? A storm nearly brought down his military jet in 1975. What social movement almost reversed Roe v. Wade early? Don't blink or you'll miss the next jaw-dropper. ERA backlash fueled early Roe challenges. Who nearly got the Manhattan Project first? Nazi Germany was close to enriching enough uranium. What invention almost didn't happen? Bell nearly missed the patent deadline by hours. The correct answer is telephone. What almost caused a second U.S. Civil War? A backroom deal prevented a violent crisis. It's the election of 1876. What nearly derailed the moon landing in 1969? They landed with less than 20 seconds of fuel left because of fuel leak. What nearly caused the U.S. to adopt the metric system? It passed, but was later defunded. That's the Metric Conversion Act. Who nearly defeated Reagan in 1984? These close calls will test your knowledge like never before. A late Kennedy run might have changed the race. Which country almost won the Cold War? The USSR nearly collapsed, but almost regained strength in the 1980s. What global event nearly caused World War III? The world came closest to nuclear war in 1962 because of Cuban Missile Crisis. Which invention almost never got mass-produced? Early skepticism almost stopped its development. The answer is the jet engine. What empire nearly avoided collapse in 1453? The Byzantines almost repelled the Ottomans at Constantinople. What scientific theory almost got discarded? Darwin's theory faced fierce opposition but survived. That's evolution. Which country almost became the third world superpower? Its economic rise in the 1980s nearly made it a superpower. That's Japan! Are you ready for the next question? What treaty almost ended the Cold War early? Reagan and Gorbachev nearly agreed to eliminate nukes. That's Reykjavik Summit. What city almost remained the capital of a global empire? It lost its status after the fall of the Western Roman Empire. That's Rome. What war almost never started in 1914? The assassination of Archduke Ferdinand nearly didn't spark war. That's World War I. Stay sharp, more coming. Which country almost conquered the world in the 16th century? Its empire was the largest but nearly collapsed in the 1500s. That's Spain. What almost stopped the discovery of America? Columbus faced mutiny from his crew before reaching land. Which leader almost avoided World War II? He almost backed down before invading Poland. That's Adolf Hitler. What nearly caused the French Revolution to fail? Delays nearly diffused revolutionary tensions. That's the Estates General. What empire almost ruled the whole Mediterranean? Rome defeated Carthage in the Punic Wars narrowly. What nearly stopped the Industrial Revolution? Workers' resistance almost delayed industrial progress. So that's social opposition. Let's ready! Don't go anywhere! Which discovery almost went unrecognized? Captain Cook's landing was nearly overlooked. That's Australia. What global pandemic nearly wiped out Europe? The plague killed 30 to 60% of Europe's population. That's the Black Death. What alliance almost formed between rivals? Early talks almost included the USSR. That's NATO. What almost ended the British Empire earlier? The 1857 rebellion nearly ended British control. That's Indian Rebellion. What almost caused the U.S. to not enter World War II? Early laws kept America out until 1941, so the answer is the Neutrality Acts. Disasters are up next. Think fast. Which president almost wasn't elected due to a Supreme Court decision? He won after the court stopped Florida recounts. That's George W. Bush. What almost ended Napoleon's reign? The harsh winter devastated his army. That's Russian winter. Who almost assassinated Abraham Lincoln? Booth was the main assassin, but Powell targeted other officials. What almost prevented the U.S. from entering World War I? It pushed the U.S. closer to war, but almost went unnoticed. That's Zimmerman telegram. Who almost became dictator of the Roman Republic? His assassination stopped him from becoming emperor. That's Julius Caesar. Halfway there and the stakes keep rising. What almost made Churchill lose power during World War II? The debate nearly forced Churchill's resignation. That's the Norway debate. Which leader nearly survived an assassination attempt? He survived a 1981 shooting attempt. That's Ronald Reagan. What almost caused the French king's downfall? It became a platform for revolution. That's the Estates General. What almost delayed the signing of the U.S. Constitution? It highlighted the need for a new constitution. That's Shays' Rebellion. Who almost overthrew the British monarchy? He led the Commonwealth after the Civil War. That's Oliver Cromwell. Which president almost moved the U.S. Capitol? Only true BrainRush fans will get them all right. He favored moving it to the south. That's Andrew Jackson. What almost led to the Soviet collapse earlier? The costly war strained the Soviet economy. That's Afghan War. Who almost fired the first shot in the Korean War? Border clashes nearly escalated before full invasion. That's North Korea. What almost kept the U.S. from the Great Depression? Early reforms were too weak to prevent the crash. That's stock market regulations. Which leader almost survived the Titanic? Still with us? You're crushing it! He died on the Titanic but could have survived. That's John Jacob Astor. What almost ended the Cold War peacefully? It symbolized the peaceful end of the Cold War. That's fall of the Berlin Wall. Who almost assassinated Hitler? The 1944 plot nearly succeeded. That's Klaus von Stauffenberg. What almost kept the Berlin Wall standing longer? The failed coup delayed German reunification. That's Soviet coup attempt. What almost caused a leadership crisis after JFK's death? He was seen as a possible alternative president. That's Robert Kennedy's ambition. Which monarch almost abdicated but didn't? Edward VIII abdicated, leading to George VI's reign. Only legends reach this far. What invention almost never succeeded commercially? Bell nearly missed the patent deadline. That's the telephone. Which space mission almost failed to return? A critical oxygen tank exploded en route to the moon. That's Apollo 13. What scientific discovery almost went unrecognized? Fleming's discovery was initially ignored for years. That's penicillin. Which technology almost ended the telegram? The telephone rapidly replaced telegrams. What almost caused the Challenger disaster? Cold weather damaged the O-rings on launch day. That's O-ring failure. Don't stop now, you've got this. What almost stopped the Human Genome Project? Budget crises threatened to halt the project. That's funding cuts. Which invention almost never got patented? Edison's patent was challenged multiple times. That's light bulb. What near disaster happened during nuclear tests? A test in 1954 exposed sailors to radiation. That's hydrogen bomb accident. What almost halted the development of the internet? Early internet was tightly controlled by the military. That's military secrecy. Which astronaut almost died during a spacewalk? He nearly lost his tether during the first US spacewalk. That's Ed White. Brain on fire yet? Keep going. What almost stopped Tesla's rise? Tesla faced major money problems despite brilliant ideas. That's financial struggles. Which device almost replaced the personal computer? They almost dominated, but PCs remained strong. That's tablets. What invention almost took decades to be accepted? Accepted only after widespread scientific proof. That's germ theory. What nearly stopped the Wright brothers? Bad weather delayed their first flights many times. What invention almost ended steam engines? It quickly replaced steam power in cars. That's internal combustion engine. What almost ended the space race early? Most people quit here, not you. Early astronaut deaths threatened the program. That's Mercury program failure. Which chemical almost wasn't discovered? Discovered accidentally in the 1930s. That's chlorofluorocarbons. What almost caused a meltdown at 3 Mile Island? Human mistakes nearly led to disaster. That's operator error. Which scientific theory almost replaced Newtonian physics? It challenged classical physics but was eventually accepted. That's quantum mechanics. What invention almost never left the lab? One word: unstoppable. Keep pushing. Early lasers were impractical and costly. Which president almost lost the U.S. during the Civil War? His leadership was crucial to Union survival. That's Abraham Lincoln. What nearly caused the U.S. to split after World War II? Tensions over Korea risked U.S. division, so that's Koreans' War. Which battle almost ended the American Revolution? Victory at Yorktown, secured independence. What almost caused the fall of the Berlin Wall? Gorbachev's policies led to the wall's fall. That's Soviet reforms. Which invention almost replaced the horse in the 20th century? Cars quickly replaced horses for transport. That's automobile. Don't blink, the best is coming. What nearly prevented women's suffrage in the U.S.? Many states resisted granting women voting rights, so that's state opposition. Who almost became the first American astronaut? He flew first, but Glenn became more famous. That's Alan Shepard. What event almost ended U.S. involvement in Vietnam? The surprise attack shocked public opinion. The answer is Tet Offensive. Which U.S. city almost became the capital? The correct answer is Philadelphia. What nearly stopped the Louisiana Purchase? Jefferson debated if purchase was legal. That's right, because of constitutional doubts. Your brain deserves a trophy. What almost ended the space shuttle program early? The 1986 disaster paused shuttle flights for years. That's Challenger disaster. What nearly caused the Great Fire of London? The fire started from a bakery oven. That's open flames. Which treaty almost failed to end World War I? Harsh terms nearly caused more conflict. The answer is Treaty of Versailles. What nearly stopped the Apollo moon landings? Funding crises threatened cancellation. So the correct answer is budget cuts. Who almost became the first U.S. president? Still alive? You're built different. He was a candidate, but never seriously. That's Alexander Hamilton. What event almost caused the War of 1812? British forced U.S. sailors into service. So that's impressment. What nearly destroyed the Great Library of Alexandria? The library was damaged during Caesar's siege. That's Julius Caesar's fire. What almost ended the Renaissance early? The Black Death slowed cultural progress. That's plague. Who almost assassinated Martin Luther King Jr.? King survived multiple assassination attempts before 1968. That's unknown assassin. What nearly stopped the U.S. civil rights movement?
Don't forget to drop your final score.
Government agencies tried to disrupt activists. That's FBI surveillance. All correct? Genius alert! Subscribe to BrainRush, weekly drops, endless challenges.